So you can see now, as I'm opening this up, I've got my pouch nearly finished. I've got the outside with the zipper in between, and I've got the wrong side with the zipper and all the raw edges hidden as well. The next thing I want to do is just give it a quick press on this at this stage. Always press as you go. The same on the other side, making sure you're pressing away the lining from the zipper so it doesn't get caught in it as you open and close. Once you're happy with that, you want to make this into an actual bag that you can use. You want your right sides to face of both your main fabric and your lining. You also want to open your zipper, because as we're sewing along here, you will not be able to open this anymore, especially if you've got a longer zipper. So open your zipper to about halfway. And you can start pinning. Make sure that the edges of your fabric align beautifully. And put a few pins in along the edge of the fabric. The more slippery your fabric, the more, or the lighter as well, the more pins you need. But with very firm fabric, you might not even need a pin at all along here. So I'm just using a few. Where you do want to pin though, is along here. So, taking the seam allowances and pushing them towards your lining, you want to line up your zipper like this, so it doesn't shift as you're sewing across it. Put a pin in either side. And the same on the other side. Pushing your seam allowance down and pinning on either side. Okay, you're ready to start sewing now. If you sew it all the way around, of course you would not be able to turn this inside out, which is what we want to do eventually. So we're going to start sewing around, pivoting as we go, but we're going to finish our rectangle, leaving a gap. The zipper is already open, so we can turn it. That's important to remember. And we're going to leave a gap between here and there. So I'm going to start sewing here. And to remind myself, just in case I get a bit overzealous, I'm going to put a double pin in. So for me, that's always a good way to just remember, hang on, I have to backstitch here so I can leave a gap. Leaving a gap, depending on how big your fabric is, but about the width of your hand. So you can pull in and pull your fabric through will be sufficient. You don't need your zipper foot anymore because you've finished with the zip now. So you can go back to your regular foot. Okay, so I'm leaving my gap. I'll put the presser foot down on the fabric and I can get started. I go forward. I do want to back stitch just to lock that stitch into place. And as I get to the corner, I want to pivot, maintaining the seam allowance that I've used previously. Because I'm using a nylon zipper, which is one of your normal dress zippers that you can get, I can sew across this. As you sew across the zip, just make sure the fabric doesn't shift. And also, go slowly to see how your machine is handling the zipper. If you find it gets stuck a little bit, you might need to help a bit and use your hand wheel and aid it through. So normally I don't recommend pushing or pulling your fabric, but in this case you might just, using the hand wheel, give it a slight, very, very gentle push until you're past the tricky bit. Take your fabric out. And just to have a quick check, check that your zipper is open. So now you can take your pair of scissors and just trim the remaining zipper away. Because you have sewn across it, your stitch will secure the ends of the zipper, so you know it's not going to pull open. If you just wanted a regular pouch without a stand bottom, now would be the time to turn it inside out. The same here. Poke them out. Give it a press. And you've got a flat pouch. But we're going to take it one step further. So I'm actually going to just take it inside out again. Quick press along the lining, because I did crinkle it up a little bit. Now showing you how to pull it through. There's two ways of doing it. There's a hard way and then there's an easy way. The hard way would be to take a corner. If you're not sure whether they are, just take a pin and push it through one seam. And if it comes out perfectly on the other side, then you know they are in alignment. Then you would decide how big you want your stand to be, your stand bottom, and you would just sew across here, backstitching at the beginning and end. However, this is quite fiddly, especially since you have 4 corners. So there's an easier way to do it as well. Take a ruler, and if you do have a ruler which is marked with, which is a square ruler, that makes it just that little bit easier. And depending on how wide you want the bottom to be, I only want a small one for this one. Of course, in proportion to your pouch, you might want a larger. If you've got a very large pouch, you must probably want a larger bottom as well. And I'm just going to go and draw on that square. Now at the moment I'm using a biro for this. After you've marked all of your 4 edges, you can cut them off. So I'm clipping off my squares. Do make sure you mark squares, not rectangles, because otherwise it won't match up. They have to be 100% even. So you can see how easy it is now. I'm opening this up and I'm aligning the seams. What I do is I'm pushing one seam to the one side and the other one to the alternate side, so I don't have too much bulk just on one end. Put a couple of pins in. Using your chopstick, make sure that no fabric is bunched underneath, that you might sew in place. And then I'm using a centimetre seam allowance here. Start at one of the corners. Go forward, do back stitch to lock it in place. And sew across all the way. And back stitch again at the end. You will do that for all 4 corners.